Hi, I'm Anna Pala. I'm creative director and founder here at Paolita. I want to talk to you a little bit about the art residency program that we've created here at our Westbourne Grove flagship store. The store was opened last August in the middle of the pandemic, and as we were opening it, I was speaking with this artist, and we thought, how cool would it be to create the windows into an art exhibition and into an art installation, and especially during a time where there were so many lockdowns and stores were emptying out their spaces, emptying out the shop floors, and basically creating a dead city landscape. And it was about doing the opposite and bringing life and energy and art to the streets and to the windows. And so I invited our first artist to do the residency, which was Ioana Pangazopoulou. She's a New York-based sculptor. And for those of you who saw it, she did this exhibition called Undomesticated. It was incredible. And now we've got our next artists who are here to do the second artist residency called How to Tie Eggs. I'd like to introduce you, Lydia and Lydia Delikoura. So talk us through the installation.
We were very inspired by the space here at Paolita. The fact that it has very large windows with a lot of light, and the fact that it's in a church, which feels very monumental. It was a possibility for us to create something that really radiated warmth into the streets, and a possibility for us to together create a large scale work, which we haven't really done before.
Yeah, and I think we were both really excited when we had completed the installation, and from across the street it feels quite magnetic, but still embracing, and we wanted it to have that layer of accessibility, that it's kind of like an illusory altar space.
So tell me about your backgrounds in art.
So I studied women's wear and worked in the fashion industry for about 7 years before I transitioned into doing purely fine arts. Mm-hmm. And I started doing women's wear because I was really interested in the sculptural possibility of fabric, and I always felt a deep relationship to the material. Mm-hmm. So when I started doing fine arts, naturally my work became more installation, and I still got to keep exploring the techniques and what I do with fabric in a more free way.
Yeah. So what's your background?
So I studied fine art at Goldsmiths, so I have quite a contemporary fine art background. And I moved back to Athens actually after my degree because it's the place that I feel most inspired to create work. And actually currently studying marble in Tinos, which is a Cycladic.
That's marble sculpting, right?
Yeah. So I'm studying marble sculpting in a very traditional school because I felt the need to go back to very inherently like archaic forms of making art, and also the idea of returning to a more physical labor of creating art. And I'm finding that as a woman in a very like male-dominated area of art making and of craft, that challenge is providing quite inspirational to me as well as difficult. So I'm kind of working through that challenge and trying to use marble in a contemporary way as a female contemporary artist.
Mm-hmm. So my last question is, why the title? The title is How to Tie Eggs.
I think that's a really great question because I think it's quite an unusual title at first sight. Yeah. And we wanted something quite playful and again accessible to make sense with the whole installation. Mm-hmm. But in a way, like we wanted the title to reflect our process, which is this constant tying knots between our cultures, material histories, and so we wanted the title How to Tie Eggs to be something a bit mysterious as well, because there is a layer of mystery and it's quite difficult to decode the whole installation. So we wanted something that was playful yet ambiguous, and yeah, just in a way not just literally tying together materials, which has been one of the kind of hardships of putting the whole installation together. It was about more of a metaphoric, like tying of meaning and metaphors and kind of bridging the gaps between our cultural histories.
Yeah, and the cultures being.
So Lily's Taiwanese, and I'm Greek, and we're constantly discussing new, like old narratives to do within our cultural histories, like the histories of materials, like cotton and silk, and even the techniques that I'm discovering with marble, like those kinds of techniques, and inspire Lydia as well. And it's kind of a perpetual cultural dialogue that's going on. And within our own practices, we like to kind of share with each other things that we're doing, new materials that we've discovered. And this was just a great opportunity to really see the two kind of cultures and materials explode.
Yeah.
And I think it's, as an artist, it's been like a really nice surprise to see working with another female artist, such a unified outcome.
Yeah.
Because the personalities of the works are quite different, but together I think they seem quite harmonious.
You're absolutely beautiful. And I have, that wasn't my last question actually, I have one more follow-up question. Well, it's not really a question, but I just wanted you both, just a short kind of talk about how this was put together, because I don't think when people view these artworks, they appreciate how much labor went into this and how much craft has gone into this. So if you can just both, like, I guess briefly talk us through, you know, I know you used certain pigments, cement, really the way you also dyed these incredible textiles, and why you chose the medium that you chose.
I think labor is quite an interesting notion to talk about when it comes to our work as well, because it's also a way for us to kind of consolidate and talk about the material histories. It gives us time to discuss literally through the process of making. And I found the process of using cement in this quantity quite difficult, but I almost felt like I needed that labor to kind of reveal the histories of the materials, because the prototypes for these tiles were made in marble, which is a laborious material in itself.
And they were hand sculpted, basically.
I hand sculpted them in marble, and I really like the idea of that being the original for all these replicated forms. But each one has its own personality and is different, because the concrete was poured differently naturally every time. And in a way, that's kind of an antidote to an anti-mass production, because each one is very unique. But from a distance, they kind of seem like they all belong to the same family of objects, and they might be identical. But upon approaching the work, each one is actually very inherently different.
Yeah, and about the dyes, you used very specific pigments also.
So I used iconography pigments to dye the tiles, because I wanted the symbolism to permeate every layer of the installation. I could have used something more domestic or more industrial, but because I really do believe in the color in iconography and how that really radiates, and how it radiates over
which is
hundreds and hundreds
of Byzantine, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Way of painting.
In
icons in churches.
Exactly,
which has gone back centuries, in fact.
Exactly. So these pigments have been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. So they refer kind of directly to a certain period of time in Greece. And I think there's a really interesting contrast with the way that Lily kind of dyed the mountains, because she used a natural material. She used clay to. Do you want to talk about that? To dye the mountains.
And also how you shaped the mountains. I think it's really interesting how you created the structure.
I use a lot of times tailoring and cutting techniques, which I obviously developed from my fashion practice. And these are actually sleeves, which I'm always very interested in the idea that patterns are shaped in the landscape of your body. So in a way, I'm always working with landscapes, whether it relates to the body or larger landscapes or a cultural landscape. So that to me is representative of that, and the repetition of it allows it to expand into a larger, more abstract landscape. And also the techniques that I've used are similar to corseting techniques, but I've used a different material inside, which is more commonly used in weaving and tying with bamboo.
So you used bamboo on the inside?
Yeah, like a soft bamboo strip on the inside.
Wow.
which is more related to where I came from, my culture and so on. And the clay, which I painted it with, earth is a material that I very often work with, which is to do with my interest in ecology and spirituality, and tying everything always back to the earth is in a way a spiritual contemplation of the material, and something quite universal as well. Even though it's about where we're from, it's in a way about where we're all from, and the connection between different cultures, and always everything coming from the earth and back to the earth.
Yeah, absolutely, because marble comes from the earth as well. And I guess the big kind of contrast is that the whole installation is kind of pink, which usually feels quite unnatural.
Yeah.
As sympathetic and as alluring as it is, it's an artificial color. It's not very commonly found in nature as much as other colors are. But I think the fact that the installation is quite industrial, and metal binds the whole structure, even binds the mountains to the concrete, it's kind of an entry point into the installation, and it kind of refers to other architectural structures around Paolita.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I'm so honored to have these beautiful, beautiful art pieces in the windows.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to really, have this explode in the space and onto the street.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.